In this video, we're going to walk through how to create a data extract in Looker Studio. My name's Reese, and one of the best things about data extracts is that they can help you get around the quota limit errors that you might be seeing with your GA4 data. The way that data extracts get around this problem is that they're not constantly requesting new live data from the Google Analytics API like the native connector does. Instead, they fetch a specific set of data, and what you're actually seeing in your dashboard is static information, but it can still be scheduled to update as often as daily on an automatic basis. Before we get started, here's a quick overview of the process. First, you'll want to make sure that you have a Looker Studio account set up. And second, you'll want to make sure that you have an existing data source to work with, since data extracts work by plugging in an existing data source into the extract. And what we'll do is first we'll create the data extract, then we'll choose the data that we want to include in it, and then we'll set an automatic update schedule so that you always have fresh data in your extract. So let's get started. To start creating our data extract, we'll hit the create button right here in Looker Studio, and then we'll select the data source option. And once we're here, we'll choose this extract data option right here in the first column. And the first thing that we'll need to do is plug in an available data source. So as you can see, we can really choose any kind of data source that we want to. And in this case, we'll be working with a GA4 data source. So the next thing is that we'll need to define what data we want to include in our extract. And so this is probably the biggest thing to get used to when working with extracts as opposed to the other types of data sources. And so instead of just choosing anything that we want from the existing schema, we have to choose what we want. And it's important to be selective here because data extracts do have a limit of up to 100 megabytes of data before they too eventually break. So if you're not sure what to include, you can just check out what you have in an existing dashboard. Otherwise, we'll just walk through the examples that I have here. So in this case, the dimensions that I'm using are date and session default channel grouping. And I also have device category down here as well. And as far as metrics go, pretty much all the metrics here are listed up here. So we'll go to the data source. And so we definitely want to add date first, and then session default channel grouping, and device category. And then for metrics, looks like I've got sessions, users, purchases, revenue, and the average purchase revenue and conversion rate. And this was just a custom metric that I created in the dashboard, so I'm not going to add this one to the data source. So we'll start off with sessions, and then users. Let's see, total users right there. And then ecom purchases, average purchase revenue, and total purchase revenue, which I think is right there. Perfect. Okay. And then you can also set your default date range right here. And in this case, because my sandbox store doesn't have a ton of data in it, I'm just going to use last quarter as my date range. And if you want, you can also add any filters in here as well. And also, just so you know, like the available fields that you can include from your data source, they'll all show up right here. So you don't necessarily need to just go by your existing data source. But the main tip that I'll give you here is, again, to be very intentional about what you include, because if you add in too many things, there's a chance that it could be too much data for the extract to handle if it goes beyond that 100 megabyte limit. And so the last thing that we'll do here is set our auto update option. So you can toggle this on so that this updates on an automatic basis. And so we could just say that this will start tomorrow. And let's choose a time like when no one's going to be using this, like 12:30 in the morning. And you can either set this daily, weekly, or monthly. And so in most cases, you'll probably want daily, just so that you can look at your dashboard for the last 30 days and have accurate data. And before we save it, let's just give this a name. We'll say GA4 extract, Shopify Sandbox, and then we'll save and extract. All right, so now we should be able to add this to a data source or to a dashboard. So we'll go to our data sources right here, and under my data sources, looks like the name didn't save for some reason, but we'll still add it. And then if I go to, let's just change this chart right here. So I'll click the data source options right there, and let's see, we need to refresh to get it back in there. And then let's set the date range to last quarter, and perfect. So this looks exactly like the data that I had in here from the native connector. So we can see that the data extract is pulling in that data correctly. And so the good news is that we can view that data as much as we want to without having to worry about running into quota limit errors. So if you found this video helpful, then I'd hugely appreciate a like and subscribe. And thanks so much for watching.